Hello and welcome to One Called Mama. I am your host, Sam, and I am so thankful that you decided to join me today. So, today is a very exciting episode for me because today is when we have our first guest speaker on the show. So, I had the opportunity to interview my friend, Leah, a fellow mom in the trenches, learning about motherhood and how to handle it gracefully and how to deal with it when you don't handle it so gracefully. Talking with her has always been so encouraging and so helpful for me. So having her as our first guest speaker was just a no-brainer. So I am really excited for you to hear what she has to say and to really kind of dive into some not so easy topics and some that actually might be kind of foreign. Um, and just enjoying her vulnerability, her willingness to share her own personal stories and testimony. And it's really wonderful. So I hope you enjoy today's episode and hearing what Leah has to share. So today I am really excited to introduce you to my friend Leah. She has been such an encouragement to me as I have really tried to figure out this whole motherhood thing. And it's so funny because I was going into college kind of when Leah was coming out, and we
Mhm.
never was really able to build like a huge friendship. But over the years, we just stayed connected through Facebook. And that has, yeah, that's how we've really kind of kindled this motherhood bond. And in my darkest moments, I have reached out to Leah and sought encouragement and advice. Just, unfortunately, she's hearing from me when I am probably at my worst. So I am really excited to share her with you today. She has so much wisdom, so much experience, and she's very encouraging. And so I am very excited to get into our topic today. But first, before we do, I wanted to let Leah share a little bit about herself and kind of introduce herself to y'all. So Leah, it's great to have you here today.
Thank you, Samantha. It's so nice to be here. Um, I think you do yourself a disservice. You are always very genuine and very encouraging, even in the moments that are difficult. So don't ever put yourself down like that. Um, One of the best things about community and motherhood is that we get to bear each other up when we're all struggling. So anyway, it has been an absolute joy. I'll just say this from the beginning. It's an absolute joy to reconnect with you. You know, nearly 2 decades after our time at university. Has concluded, but in this new season of life. So I'm so thrilled to be here. Yeah, my name is Leah. I have lived overseas for the past 5 years, in England with my husband and our 3 kids, and we have recently moved back to the United States, back to where we're from. And our time there was amazing. We experienced just a whole new culture, a whole new part of the world, and made some great friends, learned some amazing things. All 3 of our kids were born there. We have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old now. And so the Lord really blessed our time and caused us to flourish there, even in the moments that were really hard. And now He has moved our story forward to the next chapter, and that's back in the United States. And so currently, I am still a stay-at-home mom with them, and my oldest will be starting kindergarten in the fall. And so we're about to embark in a new season there as well, a new chapter, which is exciting and nerve-wracking at the same time. And yeah, so that's kind of me in a nutshell at the minute.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think we could probably do a whole episode on your life in England. That's just so, I think I bet a lot of people will be like, yeah, me, I would like to do that. I'd like to spend some time over there. That would be fun. I can't imagine the kind of experiences you had. That's neat. So I really want to jump into our topic today, and
Mhm.
very briefly, you could call it expectations versus reality in motherhood. And, that's I think that's something that we kind of overlook. We deal with the day to day and we're kind of going at it and we're like hitting our head against the wall and we're struggling and I think we don't realize that we go in with a lot of expectations. And then
Mhm.
when those expectations aren't met, we're very frustrated. And so let's talk about that. Let's talk about what that looks like and what that feels like and your experiences with that.
Yes, that is very much the truth. I'm sure I'm not alone in this, but I started motherhood with huge ideals, very idealistic. I had waited a long time for motherhood. We got started later in life on our journey into parenthood. Some of that was planned and some of that was unexpected. Which is a whole other topic when you're talking about longing to be a mother and waiting for that to be fulfilled. But so by the time that the Lord began that chapter of our life as parents, and I became a mother, I was just full of ideals. I've been waiting for this. I was ready for this, excited for this. And I knew exactly how it was supposed to go because I was, in my mind, I was super prepared. I had been raised in a wonderful home with amazing parents. And I had had so many years of watching my siblings parent their children, watching friends parent their children. And, we had gathered all of this information which felt empowering to us at the time. And then lo and behold, guess what? Reality came colliding into our expectations, into my expectations, especially because I'm very idealistic. And it didn't quite match up. Um, I expected to have a child who, slept really well. And, when they reached an age, I would teach them how to sleep and they would sleep all night. We would all get great rest. And ha ha ha, a joke fell back on me. That didn't work. And I expected to have the child who listened to me and followed instructions. Number one, because I was naive and didn't really have any understanding of child development, child brain development, what is normal, what is expected for children. All of that I learned on the fly when I got desperate. But in the beginning, going into it, expecting that, yes, my child should listen to me because I'm speaking kindly. My child should listen to me because I am speaking with authority. And all of that, my child will not throw a temper tantrum. My child will not run away from me when I say to come because I know how to teach them. I know how to train them to do it right. And the reality of how a lot of that is just incorrect expectations. Those are not age appropriate expectations for
Right.
very young children, not without help from the parent and guidance from the parent, which I didn't understand at the time, left me kind of spinning my wheels when my oldest was a toddler. And all of a sudden, all of that innate desire for autonomy and independence and a bit of a strong will started to show up. And I was just at my wit's end. I did not know how to handle this. I had not prepared for what happens in the toddler years when all of a sudden the baby who would go where you wanted them to go and would be placed down where you wanted them to be placed down and stay put and all of that is now running around doing their own thing and not particularly interested in listening to what you have to say. Um, a lot of embarrassment that comes from that, like, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
I should know how to do this. Everything that I thought I knew at this point is just blowing up in my face. And that led me to a place of deep shame. I felt like my, I felt like it all reflected back on me, as in because my child isn't meeting my expectations. The problem is that I am a failure somehow. Um, and when we feel like a failure, we tend to go into, as human beings, we go into a place of shame. We go into a place of overcompensation. We tend to scramble to fix the problem. We may place blame on someone else. And it just becomes a very vicious, very negative cycle. And so I found myself in that place by the time my oldest, certainly by the time my oldest was about 18 months, I was having conversations with with my husband, like, I don't know what to do. I can't get him to listen. He fights me on everything. He won't sleep at night. What am I doing wrong? And it's very humbling to have everything that you said, this will never happen to me, this will never be my child, thrown back in your face. And you're like, okay, I'm gonna have to start over from square one.
Right. So what was square one for you? What was that first step?
Square one, it started with going back and having the humility to acknowledge, Lord, I don't know what I'm doing here. Clearly, there is a disconnect between what I think should be, what I think is the truth here, and what is actually the truth. Because everything I'm doing is not producing an atmosphere of life. It's sucking the life out of us. So I need you to teach me how to do this. And I will go back to the very foundation, and I will unlearn anything that you need me to unlearn. And I will learn something new, whatever you need me to relearn. And it's that moment of desperation. If you choose the path of openness to the Lord, He has all of the nuggets of truth for you. He has the resources. He has the people there to support you along that journey, one step at a time, to build to build back up that from the foundation all the way up, scaffolding all the way up for you. So that was kind of where there was a big paradigm shift for me. In that moment of just being open to the Lord to teach me how to be a mother, when I realized that I didn't actually know as much as I thought I did.
It's a very humbling experience, motherhood. There's a lot of, I think there's a lot of moments that happen along the way. I think it's a continual lesson. I think I find myself having to relearn the same lessons over and over and over again. So, okay, so you came with a humble heart to God and said, okay, what do I need to relearn? So, I know we've talked about in our private conversations, like resources and things like that. So, was it a book that you read? Was it several books? Was it people you listened to? Like what, how did you even know where to start?
Yes, all of the above. So it started with friends. I had some friends who were a little bit further down the path than I was. And I was watching and noticing how they were interacting with their children. And in conversations, they were able to deposit those first seeds of try this or try looking here. And some of those were books that I read, and I'll mention a few of them, and maybe we can add some in the notes of the podcast or anything, something like that. The first book series that I started reading, it was called How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk. And I started with how to talk so little kids will listen, specifically for the toddlers and the preschoolers. And it really opened my eyes to a whole different way of communicating with small people in ways that connect with them, to be able to engage their cooperation instead of coercing them. And so that was step number one. I also became an information hound on social media accounts, Facebook and Instagram. Some of my favorite accounts that I still follow to this day are Flourishing Homes and Families. Dr. David and Amanda Erickson are amazing authors, speakers. They're trainers and coaches in parenting from a place of grace, and their posts are some of the most life-giving ones, that kind of keep me grounded in this is the truth of what scripture has to say as it relates to your parenting. I also am an avid follower of The Considerate Mama. Rachel Rogers does an incredible job of really practical advice for what is an age-appropriate expectation for your children at each phase of life, and what's an age-appropriate what is an appropriate expectation of a child who is neurotypical versus a child who's neurodiverse. And when you know how to communicate at the right level with the person you're communicating with, here are some ways that you can say what you're trying to say that will get through to them. And once again, engage their cooperation, or leave them in a place of feeling secure with you, even if they're not happy with what you're saying, even if you still have to tell them something or help them do something that they're not wanting to do, because that's reality. We set boundaries for our children to keep them safe, to keep other people safe, to keep pets and property safe. And we enforce those boundaries. We hold up those boundaries because it's good for everyone, even if our child doesn't like it. And but we can still sit with them and meet with them in a point of frustration, meet with them in a point of irritation and anger, and say, hey, this is how you're feeling, and that's okay to feel that. I can help you feel through that until your body is back in a place of feeling calm. And when your body is back in a place of feeling calm, we can solve the problem together. And that I think a number of experts describe this as scaffolding. You are scaffolding as your child is building their life from the foundation up, and the scaffolding is there to support them as they are growing, and then you can slowly take pieces of the scaffolding away once the building is sturdy enough to support itself, is strong enough to support itself as they age, as they mature, as they've had practice in this, from a place, again, of security and grace, rather than a place of stress and fear. Right. So those are a couple of my favorite resources, and I would highly recommend them to any parent, really of children of any age, especially with young children, or if you're just starting your journey, what better time to start educating yourself than at the beginning of the journey, so you know what to expect, so you're not caught off guard quite as much as I certainly was.
You said a couple of really neat things, and the first thing that struck me was how you continue to stay connected with these people, these accounts, and Flourishing Homes and Families, for example, and you stay engaged with their content. And I think that's so important, is for us to remember that your default, until you are really, because you have your defaults in your life, the certain way you do things. And if you're seeking to change those defaults, you have to really keep reminding yourself, you have to keep re-engaging your brain, you have to really break those old habits. And so when you said you stay grounded by listening to them, I'm like, yeah, that's a good reminder. You can't just think you learned this once or read this book once and then you're good and you're just going to go. No, you have to keep reminding yourself of this new way of thinking, of this new way of parenting and handling your kids, because they're humans. They are tiny, I think, and my friend and I we were talking about this yesterday. It's like, a lot of times I think people treat children like aliens, like they don't know what to do with them. They're like this annoying, like, creature running around, but they're just tiny humans who have no idea how to handle their emotions. They have no idea how to handle the world. And that's what the parent is for. We're there to help them build the scaffolding and I think another word of that is like co-regulate, is you help them co-regulate. You meet them on their level. It's so hard. I'm not saying it's easy. It is so hard, because their emotions trigger our emotions, and they trigger that fear of looking like a failure. And when they throw a tantrum, you think, oh my gosh, everyone who's witnessing this thinks I'm a bad parent. But you know what? It
I'm
just
bad
doesn't
parent.
matter.
Mhm.
Yeah, like that whole like what other people think of you as a parent just does not matter. I think that's just so powerful to remember that they're doing their best. Their best is just like crazy. I mean, they're just running around trying to explore their world and learn this whole thing called life that they have no idea how to do. Um, it's just it's crazy to me the expectations we put on our kids, at such a young age, so early on. So, okay, so now you have the data. What did it look like when you started implementing that with your son? And then as you had more children, how did that look?
It is definitely an up and down. I won't gloss over. It's when you first start, it's like any new skill. It is hard at first and it feels very unnatural.
Mm.
And you will constantly have moments, I certainly did have and still do have moments of questioning, is this right? Am I doing this right? And also the natural frustration of, is this working? Why is this still not working? Because the biggest paradigm shift that the Lord gave me is the fact that this isn't a formula. And you touched on it just now when you talked about our children are tiny humans, and humans are hugely complex. We are the crowning creation of the Lord. We are made in his image, and he is an incredibly complex God. He is not complicated like that, but the he does not fit in a box. He is not one-sided or two-sided, and neither are we. We are full of emotions. We are full of memories. We are triune as he is. We have a body, we have a soul, we have a spirit. And all of that comes into play when a child is born, when they're a baby. They have all of these things at work. And so recognizing that they are not robots, they're not aliens, as you said, they feel things like we do. And what helped me is kind of turning it around and thinking about the way that God parents me.
Mm.
Am I always at my best with him? No, obviously not. Am I always making the right choices? Do I always listen to what he has to say? Am I always happy and joyful in circumstances? Absolutely not. And if he gives me infinite grace for that, if he forgives me and helps me through those moments, through those storms, and teaches me better ways to handle it, better ways to do it, then that is the call, that is the commission he's given me as a parent for my children as well. If he forgives me, if he gives me grace, that's all the more reason for me to give forgiveness and grace to my children when they are not doing well, especially because they are so much younger than I am and they have very underdeveloped brains. The first thing you learn about if you study anything to do with neuroscience and child development is that the brain starts out very immature, very primal. And the part of our brain that processes our basic needs, our survival instinct, is the one that is fully in gear right from the moment that we're born. But the upper thinking, the prefrontal cortex in our brain that handles our executive function and our reasoning capabilities and learning, all of that is very, very, very underdeveloped. And it grows by leaps and bounds. But a young child does not have the capability of managing their body and their emotions the way that an adult hopefully should be able to by the time that their brain is fully developed. So we need to go in with extra grace for our children in those moments when they are at their worst, when their world has come crashing down around them, maybe for something as simple as, I wanted my sandwich cut into squares and you cut it into triangles. Um, to us, no big deal. To them, that is their expectations colliding with reality. And they don't have the emotional capacity to handle that.
Mhm.
And so what erupts is a tantrum.
Mhm.
And so what they need us to do in that moment is help them to work through the frustration, co-regulate with them until they're back in a state of calm. And then their upstairs brain, their thinking brain, is now turned back on to where they can learn, okay, this isn't so bad. This isn't the end of the world. Here is a skill that I can learn to handle it better over time as I grow, or next time, or whatever it is. The co-regulation only works though when we can manage to stay in a state of calm
Right.
ourselves. Now um, that doesn't mean suppressing our own emotions to the point where we pretend it's fine and then explode, which was part of the journey for me, learning as well, is all of my own emotions that get wrapped up in that. And we'll talk about that in a second, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, those moments of co-regulation with them is extending that grace to them that our Father God extends to us. And when I can remember this, Lord, this is how you view me in my moments, my ugly moments. This is how I need to view my child, my children in those moments as well. Was kind of the next step there. The roller coaster is that some days that goes easier and some days that doesn't go as well.
Yeah.
And there are a million factors at play in that. It's not just my child and my child's emotions. It's, oh my goodness, the phone is ringing, the doorbell is ringing, I'm cooking dinner, the dinner is burning. I forgot to take the laundry out of the washer and put it in the dryer. And so now I have to go, and it's been 2 days probably. And so all of these things are bombarding us. And if you've got more than one child, you probably have multiple children's needs that you're trying to meet at the same time. And all of that bombards us as parents, as mothers, and puts us then in a frantic state as well. And those are the times when it is exceptionally hard to maintain calm, to put out one fire at a time. So it's still a journey, even when you know all the right information, even when you have all of the data. Implementing it is going to be an up and down journey, and that's okay. And that's what we have to remember. That's what I have to remember every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said that so beautifully, kind of walking us through what it looks like to co-regulate with a child. It is so hard. You know, I am learning how to do this skill, and I am learning how to be patient with my children when they're throwing a fit, when they're being unreasonable, or what I consider
Mhm.
unreasonable.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they're, like you said, their prefrontal cortex, that part of their brain that makes sense and makes, you know, reasoning work, that doesn't work right now. And they're learning that. And so it's messy, it's hard. You're gonna get it right like half the time, and half the time you're gonna give in to your own emotions. And what I've found is in those moments where, like, say, I can remember where I am, what I said, and what the situation was. And I know in the
Mhm.
Bible, like a lot of times, especially in the Old Testament, mainly in the Old Testament, they would put up markers at significant
Mhm.
moments where God did something important in that moment of time. And I feel like that's what they're serving for me. And so when you have those moments where you find that you just didn't handle the situation well, whatever it was, use it as a marker, use it as a reminder. And like for me, it plays back like in a fraction of a second. I can remember what that looked like and felt like when I lost my temper and when I didn't handle it well, and I'm
Mhm.
able to use like those few seconds to breathe and calm down and remember how yucky it felt when I didn't handle it right.
Right.
And then I'm able to kind of take a step back and calm myself down. And
Mhm.
it was really cool because I just gotten Evelyn out of the shower, and she was so mad at me because she wasn't listening to me. So I said, okay, we're done. We're going to be done with the shower. And I didn't say it in that tone. I guess I said it in a very not nice tone. I was like, we're done. You know, I guess I had an attitude because she told me when she got out of the shower, she said, Mommy, you weren't very nice. You were mean.
Mhm.
You were mean to me. And so I got down in front of her and I said, I'm sorry. it wasn't my intention to be mean to you. I said, you weren't listening to me and it upset me. It made me mad. And the very next thing she did was hug me. She just came
Mhm.
forward and gave me a hug. And just having that moment of, she's almost 4, she'll be 4 in August. Just having that moment of just, here's how I'm feeling, mommy, and here's how mommy's feeling.
Yeah.
And that was all she needed. She needed to feel heard. She needed to know that I knew it hurt her and that I acknowledged that it was wrong for me to lose my temper. And I mean, it just was so amazing to me when I thought about it later. I was like, that was a healthy argument that I just had with a almost 4-year-old. And, that wouldn't have happened if if I had taken the old tactic, which would just to be, I'm right, you're wrong, you're young, I'm older, I know what I'm talking
Mhm.
about. Just,
Yeah,
but that wouldn't have happened. And that was so, I don't know, for me, it was healing.
I love that. I love that. That is something to write down in the journal and keep forever. Um, you hit the nail on the head. When we acknowledge where they are and share where we are, what we have then is a moment of empathy where we are empathizing with them and teaching them how to empathize with us. Because we do want our children to grow up to have empathy, to be able to feel what other people are feeling, to know how their words and actions impact others. Um, and you can start that, even though it doesn't click for many, many years in most children. That's okay. You're planting those seeds, and one day it will click. One day there will be a harvest from that. And I love that story. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
Mhm.
I was so proud of her. I'm more proud of her.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm a little proud of myself if I'm being honest. I mean, it was kind of like, hey, we didn't have to turn to the angry and the upset and
Hmm.
to the, because that leaves you feeling worse than if you
Yeah.
had just slowed down and tried to understand where they were coming from. And it's
Mm.
just so much better when you're able to do that.
I'm endeavoring every time now that I'm in a moment where I'm recognizing, oh, I am boiling. I'm boiling under the surface. And I am on the brink of a grown-up tantrum. Because let's be honest, when we blow up at our kids, what are we doing? We are having a grown-up tantrum. And we have been taught that it's okay to do that when you're a grown-up, but it's not okay to do that as a child. And so there's a bit of a double standard there. Uh, but when I find myself, because I am human, and coming to recognize my signs of, oh, I am starting to boil, is an incredible skill to learn to evaluate yourself in the moment where you're starting to escalate, and be able to stop and say, okay, what do I need to do right now to de-escalate myself?
Mhm.
Um, and let me think 10 minutes forward. What am I going to feel in 10 minutes? Am I going to feel shame because I blew up at them? Because I know every time I blow up and give in to an unhealthy expression of my anger, I end up feeling ashamed.
Yeah.
Do I want to feel that shame 10 minutes from now? Or do I want to feel a sense of um, just gratitude and, yeah, proud of myself and proud of my kids 10 minutes from now, when we have all calmed back down and we handle the anger in a healthy way?
Okay, so that being said, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk
Mhm.
about the other side of it when we do give into our emotions, when we don't handle the moment well, and tying it into expectations. We have expectations for what motherhood will look like as a whole. We have
Mhm.
expectations of what we expect from our kids, even though they're very unrealistic, until we get like a reality check.
Mhm.
Let's talk about the expectations we place on ourselves and really in those moments when we're triggered. Because I think this is very new for a lot of people. It's very new for me to understand that when our children don't mind us, whatever form it comes in, or when their emotions are big and they're throwing a tantrum or they're just really upset, how that affects us and what that can really bring out in us. And this is a very interesting topic because I know we have definitely talked about this, and I've definitely talked to you about this. So let's dive into it a little bit and explore this.
Yes. So that is a good point. The reality is nobody is going to respond perfectly every time. And if we set up an expectation on ourselves for that, we will end up feeling very ashamed and feeling like failures. And I certainly did. I definitely had a misplaced expectation on myself that I was going to handle motherhood from a place of grace all the time. And the Lord was actually inviting me into something that I didn't even understand. And that was the work of cleansing and healing in my own body and my own soul, of things that I didn't even realize were there. Uh, so the basis of all of this really, it comes down to your nervous system and how our bodies store memories and they store responses, and we have natural responses to those memories, all the way from when we are born. And when you have grown up and experienced things as an infant, as a toddler, as a child, and particularly if you were often in situations where your voice was not appreciated, where your feelings were not validated or co-regulated, um, and or you were in perhaps a very neglectful or traumatic situation, or everything in between. The reality is we all come into parenthood with baggage of our own. And that is not to cast blame on our parents. The vast majority of us, I imagine, have parents like myself who did the absolute best that they could. And God bless them. They most likely rose up on the shoulders of their parents who had done the best that they could. And they were trying to break some cycles that they had experienced. But to a certain degree, a lot of us are products of our time and products of the era that we grow up in, and products of the circles that we grow up in, and the information that we're exposed to. And there may have been some faulty information given too. So giving your parents grace, giving your grandparents grace, giving way back in your ancestral line, giving grace for all of the things that maybe they didn't do perfectly, but they were doing the best they could. So you give grace backward, you're going to get grace forward, okay? Because your kids will have things. I've already prayed to and told the Lord many times, Lord, please, I don't want to give my kids reason to need a ton of therapy. The reality is they may still need some because of times when I haven't gotten it right, and that's okay, because I'm praying that they will give me grace as well. But when you are formulating a lot of these early experiences, a lot of these early memories, your nervous system remembers that. And it can turn into a trigger later on, particularly when your child is doing something that you were punished for as a child. Rightly or wrongly, doesn't matter. If your child is doing that and you were punished for that, or you had some kind of negative experience with that, that trigger is going to come out in your body, and oftentimes manifests itself in ways that we're not very proud of, that I'm not very proud of. It, in full transparency, the things that I have done, thought of, said, at the very least, imagined in my head in moments where I was just seeing red, in absolute, at the end of myself, rage, honestly have shocked me. The grotesqueness of what that came out, where I was sitting here thinking, what is this monster coming out of me? I don't want to talk like that. I don't want to say that. I don't want to do this. I don't want to think like that. Everything in me knows that this is not Christ-like. This is not the mark of someone who is saved and redeemed and following Jesus. What is this? Um, and so the Lord very graciously revealed to me, he's like, these moments of trial and tribulation with your children, because it was oftentimes with my kids when the monster would come out. Um, this is a crucible that you are in. And the point of a crucible is to turn up the heat so high that all of the impurities rise to the surface. And then they can be skimmed away. And what you're left with is the pure, valuable, precious metal, or whatever it is that's been put into the crucible. Where everything that's not serving the point of that metal, where everything that is not profitable, where is not serving the future of that, is can be removed, can be burned up, it's removed. And there were deep points of wounding and anger within me that I had no idea were there because they had been suppressed all the way down. And that's normal to do as well. But the Lord, in his graciousness, said, Leah, I am inviting you to a place where I can bring this out of you so that it no longer has its hooks in you, so it no longer ensnares you. It's uncomfortable, it's unpleasant, it's painful, and it can leave you feeling very guilty and very ashamed if you're not careful. I certainly was. But he's taught me that if I allow him in those moments where I'm triggered with something that my children are doing that is undesirable or unallowable, because they're human and they do a lot of things that I can't allow as well, that's a moment where I can say, okay, Jesus, this is a part of me, of my history, that I need cleansed or I need healed or both. I need the things that do not look like you to be cleansed, to be removed from my body, from my nervous system. And I invite you to bring your healing touch into that, to retrain my brain, retrain my body, retrain my emotions to respond in a way that is life-giving, that does look like Jesus. And that is such a long process. And it oftentimes takes many goes at it in the crucible before you begin to notice, wow, on the whole, I'm responding differently than I used to. Most of the time now, or much of the time now, I'm responding differently, or I am proactively handling this differently than I used to. Okay, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. And there's also so much grace for those moments where we revert back to the old pattern. Because again, we touched on it earlier, you have so many things bombarding you as a mother. You've got your own your list of chores to do, to take care of your house, to keep it running. You have got expectations from other people, especially if you're a working mom. You've got all of those responsibilities that you need to do. You've got your spouse that you want to engage with. You want to maintain relationship with friends and other family, and you want to perfectly meet all of your children's needs. The reality is we can't do all of that at the same time. We're never going to get it all right all at once. And there will be those perfect storm moments where everything is going wrong all at the same time. And your children are all having a meltdown at the same time, and dinner is burning, and someone's at the door, and your perhaps your spouse did something frustrating to you earlier and it's still running in your head, and all of these things are going wrong at the same time. And you know what? Your body at that moment, your nervous system, your emotions are at a breaking point. You are so overstimulated. Those are the moments where it's very likely, at least some of the time, you're not going to respond with as much grace as you want to. you know what, we can offer ourselves forgiveness and receive forgiveness for those moments, and we can go back and repair with our children the way you talked about, Sam, in your story earlier. You went back to Evelyn and said, hey, I'm sorry that that didn't come across the way that I wanted it to. This was what was happening. And our kids need to hear our apologies. They
Mhm.
need to be taught how to repair when something's gone wrong, when they haven't done it right. And the way that they're going to learn that is us modeling it to them. I
Right.
have so many opportunities every week to apologize to my kids and teach them how to repair. Um, and there is a good side to that, because every time that I do, it is time when I am reestablishing the foundation of our relationship, that I realize that I am not above reproach, or I'm not above a standard of, I want to live above reproach, but I'm not above above the law. And when I mess up, I need to go back and repair. And that sets the stage for when they mess up, they can go back and repair. And it's just a perfect picture of, in God, everything can funnel into a place of healing and growth and becoming more like Jesus, and to be life-giving even when it's hard.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. I love that God redeems everything.
Yes.
That we serve a heavenly Father that redeems absolutely everything. And a couple of points based off of what you said. First and foremost, I do want to go back to when we talked about, like, when we started this conversation. Um, there is absolutely zero judgment on generations past. We all operate off of knowledge that we have, off of what we're
Yep.
learning,
Mhm.
and studies that are being done. And now we live in an age where we can,
Mhm.
study the brain. We can learn about children's development. We can learn how the brain works. And we weren't able to do that years ago in our parents' generation or the generations before them. And I think that every generation seeks to do better than the previous. I think, and
Mhm.
even if they think they had the most perfect parents, which I think I had the most perfect parents, you
Yeah,
think you had the most perfect parents,
I do.
that we love them and adore them and they were amazing,
Mhm.
but they
Yes,
still sought to do better than their parents. And
they
we still
did.
seek to do better than our parents. And it's not
Exactly.
a reflection of on them. It is
Mhm.
just, we have more knowledge, we have new knowledge,
Yeah.
we want to seek to do better. And so I just wanted to say that as well, like reiterate that point, that there is absolutely zero condemnation
Yeah.
on any generations past.
Absolutely
Um,
not. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Uh, and hopefully my mom brain will be able to remember the other thing I wanted to say. Um, just it was so amazing when I was talking to you and our private messages, and you were so willing to be so vulnerable. Because I was
Mhm.
scared. I was scared to be vulnerable about these feelings that I was having, because I
Mhm.
too was having this rage that it was just out of nowhere. And I mean, I identify as someone who typically does have a little bit of, maybe a little bit, some people will laugh, the people that know me the best, when I say a little, that I struggle with anger. Like, I that is kind of a default for me. So it's not surprising that I get angry, but the level of how quickly it would happen, just it was just so fast. And it was almost like whiplash. Like, you can't even like really grasp what you're feeling before you've already taken action. It's just,
Yes.
yeah, it's so quick.
Mhm.
And I think most moms are going to deal with this in some form or another. And it's so refreshing and good to know that it's not something you're dealing with on your own.
Mhm. Yeah.
There's nothing new under the sun. There is nothing that someone is experiencing out there that there isn't someone else experiencing something very
Yeah.
similar or the same. So just knowing that this is natural, that it's very much a shared experience, was just,
Okay.
that in and of itself was healing to me. And then just knowing that there was a reason behind it, that it wasn't just an unwarranted rage or response, or
Mhm.
deep sorrow, that it was grounded in something. there was a
Yes.
cause for it, or there was a reason for it.
Mhm.
And I think it's so neat that God was specifically for you wanting to take you through like a healing process, and that whole
Yes.
comparison to the crucible and like skimming away the
Mhm.
impurities. That is just awesome. I think that is incredible. That he really is just taking you on that journey, and just to see
Mhm.
where that will take you in your family's life and in your kids' life. And then the last thing that came to my mind, and this was actually something that came to my mind um, a while ago before our conversation on this, but something I realized is that when we have those moments when we fail or we give into our emotions, whatever you want
Mhm.
to call it,
Yeah.
and we have to go back to our kids and apologize. And thank you for saying that, because it is very important to apologize to your children.
Mhm.
They are
Yes.
humans. They deserve respect and love,
Do.
and
They do.
they do deserve the apology when it is warranted, and when you've messed up, you
Mhm.
should apologize to them. Um,
Yeah.
what is so wonderful is that in those moments where you have to apologize, they are seeing the work of Christ. They are seeing that is their opportunity to see how God works, to see
Mhm.
how God brings things full circle, to see how he loves us through our love and our grace for our children. That is modeling Christ to them.
Mhm. Yeah.
So without those moments of us having to, if we were perfect, then that would that wouldn't be much of a reason to seek Jesus. It's in our imperfections that they realize there is a standard, there is something more, and that something more is Jesus. And so um really it just brings so much hope and redemption to those moments where we just really don't meet the standard that we've set for ourselves. Just remember that there is hope, and there is grace, and there is
Yes.
redemption in those really hard moments.
Yes. Because when you realize that every bit of your parenting is just one step along the journey, every step is a chance to say, you know what? I'm going to move forward. I didn't do that well yet, 10 seconds ago, but I'm going to make it right, and I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to do better because Jesus empowered his grace, his mercy, and his grace provide forgiveness, but they also empower me to do better. And you do not have to be stuck in the cycle of shame and guilt and rage anymore. He comes with an invitation to be cleansed and to be healed, to where you can be transformed. He designed parenting to be what I really believe parenting is the most transformative experience you can have. You will not come out of it the same as when you went into it. You will learn so much more about Jesus, and you will, if you do it right, you will come out looking so much more like Jesus because of it. And I like to say it's the parenting, and being a mom is the best thing and the hardest thing that I've ever done all at the same time. And it's okay to embrace the duality of that, because that's part of Jesus transforming me more and more to look like him. And we are where we start is not where we're going to end. And it's that hope that can keep us moving forward when we recognize that. When we recognize everything that is against us, and then we have an enemy who is trying to undermine us and trying to invalidate us in our position as mothers, we understand that he's going to find those triggers. He's going to find those spots that really affect us the most, because he knows our history. He knows what is going to throw us for a loop, and he's going to try to bring us down in those areas and then keep us down, feeling that sense of shame, like, oh, I screwed it up again. And I just want to give up. I can't do this right. So why am I even trying? And it's such a lie, because Jesus says that I came that you might have life and you might have it abundantly.
Right.
Um, and in the moments where you feel at your weakest, one of my favorite scriptures to look back on is from Isaiah 42:3, and it says, "A bruised reed he will not break, and a smoldering wick he will not snuff out. In faithfulness he will bring forth justice for truth." He will take us in our moments where we feel like the broken reed, where we feel like the smoldering candle, and we've got nothing left. And he says, "I will not crush you in those moments. I am going to bring forth justice. I'm going to lift you up out of that place of feeling crushed, and I'm going to put you back into a place of strength." He did not give us the role of mother to break us. He gave us this role, this responsibility, this identity in order to make us thrive, to cause us to thrive, to impact the next generation, and to show us another piece of who he is as our Father. And everything that has happened in our past that may be making it difficult, those triggers, those memories, or those subconscious things in you that just come out, that rage monster that just comes out, and you're like, where's this coming from? Girl, that is your body feeling overwhelmed. That is your nervous system going into that primal state, and you feel attacked, and you feel overwhelmed, and you feel threatened. And so your body goes into a stress response, that fight, flight, freeze response. It still comes out of you just like it does out of your kids. But you now have been given the gift of hopefully age and maturity, so your thinking brain can come online to help de-escalate. But also, as daughters of the King, we have been given the mind of Christ. We have been given the Holy Spirit to strengthen us for those moments where we are at our wits' end, to the strength to be able to do the right thing, to be able to bring the peace of Christ into that situation that feels like a complete disaster. He says, "I've told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you're going to have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world." And because he has overcome the world, I can be an overcomer. I can be a mama who is victorious over everything that is trying to undermine me. And I can be a mama that passes on that truth, that grace, that peace to my children. I can pass that on to the next generation. I can show them, I can give them that little glimpse of how precious they are in the eyes of our Father God, so that when they reach a point, they can see him and realize, oh, I recognize that. I recognize that. And I pray that it's because of the seed that I was able to plant, and that we are able to plant as parents.
Yeah, no, I love that. Oh, thank you for sharing that. That is just such a perfect way to wrap this all up. That was just so well said. I love the way I love the way your mind works. I love the way that you speak with such love and grace. And I kind of wish that you were like my inner monologue sometimes, because you just have such a beautiful way of forming those
I can
thoughts.
choose those moments. I can choose those moments wisely.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Do you have any final thoughts as we wrap up today?
Um, just encouragement for all the mamas who are at the beginning of your motherhood journey. I highly recommend seeking out really good insight and wisdom and information on parenting, on especially with toddlers and older kids. We spend so much time looking into, when we're preparing to become a mama, we spend so much time looking into what do we do for newborns, what do we do for infants, and really we also need to be preparing ourselves for what do we do when our children become toddlers and school age kids and teens. I mean, we're in an information age where we have access to all the information that you could possibly imagine when it comes to child development and teen behavior, and also how to parent from a place of grace, how to parent as Christ would. And so making use of those resources before you need them is such a wise thing to do. But also for, I want to say for the mamas who feel like I have screwed this up. My kids are a little bit older now. They're teens and they hate me because I did this all wrong. That is just as much of a lie. It is never too late. It is never too late to turn the tide. It's never too late to have that paradigm shift. In Christ, anything can be redeemed. So start now. Start from the beginning. Take baby steps, and you will find that every step that you make forward, even the tiny ones, are going to start making a difference. Find those resources, find that community that will support you in that, and do not resign yourself to a place of defeat, because you are never defeated. No matter how far into the journey you are, never defeated.
I love that. Thank you so much. Such a good word. You're so right. There's always, there's always time. God can redeem anything. I have seen him redeem amazing things in my life and other people's lives.
Yeah.
There is nothing that he cannot save, fix, alter, change, like absolutely nothing's out without I lost my words, nothing out of the realm of possibility for him.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
so we are going to link all of the things that Leah mentioned today, the books, the social media accounts. We're going to link those in the description of today's episode. If you have any prayer requests, please feel free to reach out to me. I am more than happy to pray over you and anything that's going on in your world. If you have suggestions or comments, please leave them below. Leah, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. Time is precious, and I am just so thankful. We are thankful that you chose to be with us today and to share your experiences and everything that you've gone through. So thank you so much. I'm so blessed.
Thank you so much for having me. It has been a blast to share this time with you. You are an amazing woman, an amazing mom, an amazing friend, and this has been a real privilege. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Y'all have a wonderful and blessed day, and we will be talking to you again real soon.